With infinite complacence, people went to and fro the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
On this episode of Into the Fray, I welcome D on with me, and he sent me an email with a Substack attached, and it is titled, "It Can't Be People." And I just wanted to say, D, that, you know, at the initial onset of receiving this email, I'm like, oh, cool, crop circles. I haven't really done a crop circle episode in I don't know how long, or maybe I haven't actually done an official crop circle episode. But then I started to read your description, and I'm like, oh, this is a little different than I was expecting. And let me just read straight from the initial email that you sent me, just to set you up, and then we can, of course, begin to delve further into this. Okay, so It Can't Be People addresses supernatural and high strangeness events reported by human crop circle makers before, during, and after creation. And this information comes through your own experiences and exclusive interviews. So that was right pulled from your email. I thought it was a perfect way to open that, because that was when I got smacked with this, hey, this isn't what you think it's going to be. And that's why I'm so excited to have you on. So welcome on the show, D.
Oh, thanks very much. That's a great intro.
Well, I mean, I don't even know where to start. You know, were you doing crop circle making and something happened? Did you hear a strange story and it sent you down the rabbit hole? Where do we begin?
Where it began is I've always had a profound interest in the paranormal. Ufology really brought me in. When I was a child, when I saw Close Encounters, it had a profound effect on me when I was a child. I was only like 12, and I had this overriding sensation of, I've seen all this before. It was like this primal, latent unlocking in me. And I've always been interested in ufology and the paranormal. And in the 80s, the UFO casebooks started to include pictures of crop circles alongside their UFO sightings, and they were generally the old style single circles with perhaps satellite little circles around them that looked like landing gear. And the way that they were presented was that they appeared to be like the old tully nests in Australia, where they looked like birthed craft. So that fascinated me, because it looked like, you know, something had landed and flattened the corn. But then in the 1990s, the pattern started to elaborate into like forks and door keys and straight lines. So it no longer had the birthed UFO polemic attached to it, because nobody could imagine a UFO looking like that. But the imagery was so ingrained in people's minds that people started to say, oh, well, that's not a birthed UFO. That's now a sign from our intergalactic brothers, that they couldn't distract. They couldn't take apart the connection between UFOs and crop circles. I visited my first crop circle in about 1999. I actually, that was from a distance. I actually walked into my first crop circle in 2002 or 2004, and that was a brilliant formation. It was like a pentagon formation around debris. And I became so fascinated by the subject, because I had an experience in there whereby, you know, time kind of stands still, and you've got this strange pattern in a field, in an ancient site, which looks simultaneously strange but also simultaneously like it's supposed to be there. And I became fascinated, and I actually spent an entire season down there, completely convinced that this thing was paranormal, nothing to do with human beings. We were viewing the human beings as being like a hindrance. We were saying that the mystery is deep enough without these pranksters coming in and mucking things up and making fake circles alongside them. We were quite disdainful of these people. But then I started to hear stories of strange things happening during, before, and after the creation process. And I met a few crop circle makers, and they weren't these villains. They were just people that were doing it either as works of art, or they had this pull to do it. You know, I'm not saying that they were anointed or chosen ones, but people that tended to be aligned to the paranormal and aligned to, you know, esoterics were compelled, they don't know why, to come and make these circles. And long story short, I decided that in order to know the subject fully, you had to be inside and outside. Okay, so when I see researchers saying, you know, it can't be done by humans, my reaction is, well, have you done one? Have you seen it done? If not, you know, you can't comment. And I promised myself that unless I experienced a supernatural or paranormal or strange phenomena when I went to witness a circle being made or help out on a circle, I wouldn't do it again. But I was called in to help out on a circle because a circle maker overheard me saying that I didn't care how they got there. I was more interested in what they did afterwards because of the effect they had on people. So long story short, Shannon, I promised myself I'll go out with these circle makers. They've taken me into they've taken me into their trust. I will not do this again unless I see firsthand something strange. And we made this circle. It was a two-stage event. The first, it had been started the night before, and I helped on the finishing process. And nothing strange happened at all. So I thought, okay, this is all hogwash. The guys said, this is just all bullshit, and you know, it's all part of the mythology, and it's all apocryphal, and it's not real. And when we finished the circle, at the instant we finished it, I saw what looked like a camera flash at the right at the edge of the field, right at the edge of the rim. And I thought, oh shit, that's a camera. We've been caught, you know. And it's criminal damage. It's vandalism. It's as far as the courts are concerned. It's illegal to do it. It's illegal to make a crop circle unless you've got permission from the farmer. And I thought, oh shit, this is me done now. You know, I'm going to get a criminal record, etc. And this light expanded so that it looked like a massive necklace. It multiplied over into a dozen, and then sort of, you know, 30 or 40 lights that completely enclosed us, and it was glistening, and it looked like, you know, loads and loads of little magnesium flares, just pinpoints flashing off. And I said to the team leader, oh God, this is it. You know, they're taking pictures. And he said, no, that is normal. And I said, what do you mean? He said, that's just them telling us that it's okay. Don't do anything else to this circle, because if you do, you'll mess it up. It's like a little round of applause, and it's to say to us, stop now and leave. And I said, what do you mean they? What do you mean? What are you talking about? And he said, don't worry, you're going to get used to this. And he sort of addressed no one in particular and said, okay, we've done our work. Now it's time for you to do yours. Because the saying is that the circle's ours until the second that we leave it, and then it belongs to the world. And then as soon as he said that, all the lights went off, and we left the field. And at that point I thought, there's something to this. And after that I started to go and create, primarily to see stuff like that, and I did. That's really it in a nutshell.
So how many times have you personally seen these lights?
I've seen that particular phenomenon only once, okay, where it's like flashing magnesium flares. But we've had instances where we've gone into the fields, and not until we've made that first stomp with the board, Shannon, okay, it's only at that point you'll see a pink light flash up into the sky. You'll see a light, just a single light, just click on like a light switch, and it will stay there for the duration of your make, and then it will go. And first of all, we thought, well, that's a helicopter light, you know, and then you think, well, no, because there's no sound, there's nothing on the end of it, and it just stays there. But I've personally seen pink lights and orange lights a lot. And I've had reports of other people that have left the fields, and as they're leaving, they look behind them, and there's like lights dancing around the formation as if it's like doing some sort of reconnaissance, as if it's interested, and as if it's scoping, and as if it's checking to see everything. It's like it's examining it because it's interested. But I've only seen those magnesium flares once, but I've seen the pink lights. About 3 or 4 times. But it's also important to tell you that where the artistry, where the circle making is occurring in these really special sites like Stonehenge and Avebury and the Long Barrows, those lights are seen anyway, irrespective of there being crop circles. So we think that the crop circles are really like part of an inherited tradition that our forebears, when they were making stone circles, we think that the phenomenon is there anyway, whether the crop circles are there or not. But it just seems to be that when crop circles are made, they are particularly prevalent as well.
Oh, this is cool. I definitely wasn't, I didn't know, exactly where we were going, but this is extremely fascinating to me. Okay, so a couple of questions just right off the bat here. Is there, because we are going to talk about the fact that it's not just this one incident, obviously, even with you have started to collate and collect different reports. So in regards to the lights, the colors of the lights, you said that at least in one instance with you saw a single light in the sky, and then at the culmination of creating this pattern over this 2 stages, you said, was there a pattern? Sorry, go ahead.
We saw the magnesium flares in the 2-stage formation. We saw the first pink light. It was a 1-stage formation that took 4 hours to complete. Okay. And the light appeared on the first stomp mark, and then it was there for the duration of the circle being made. Okay. And afterwards it blinked off. But what was interesting there was obviously we've only got a 4 or 5 hour window to create, because when the sun starts coming up, your cloak's gone. Okay. And we're really cutting it fine there, and we actually finished it as the light was coming up, but the pink light was still really clear, and it was so bright. The luminescence was so sharp on it, and that's when you know that you would have seen the structure behind it had it been a chopper or military or a plane hovering there. But even when the light was coming up and we started to see that the sun rising, it was still so bright. And then as soon as we finished it, it just like blinked off, and it was just gone.
It's like it's giving you a nod, like, good job, guys.
Well, there's been reports I know of a pilot that actually, with his night vision, saw people going into a crop circle to with their boards and with their paraphernalia, and he said that the second they entered the field, he saw a light come up above them. Which they weren't aware of. Well, obviously we don't know if they're aware of it because he didn't speak to them. But he said it seemed to be like this babysitter thing. It just comes on, and is there keeping watch, and then just goes when it's finished.
It makes you wonder. And I'm not up on crop circle history and the very first one that was documented and all of that, but it makes you wonder if back then this person or people would have known somehow that they could do this in order to communicate with this other side, with this them, with this they.
Yeah, see, we don't know whether this is a debate that rages within the circummating community. Sometimes, honestly, what will happen is we'll go to make a circle at a certain field, and and the design that we've drawn out has already been implanted there by another team who have left, okay? And these synchronicities occur where you think, well, I'll go and do that circle there. No, there's somebody else that's been done already. And we don't know whether we're communicating with each other subliminally through, like, the species field, through like the collective consciousness, or whether we're actually, or whether there's a triangulation going on and we're being influenced by another force. That's one thing that we're really finding it hard to agree on. But there's certain, it's either a telepathy between the makers, or there's some extensive external, coercion which is occurring, which makes us think that we've thought these ideas up ourselves and it's anything but, and we're actually being not channeled, because that's too, it's like we're being influenced by another party, and we think these are our ideas and they're not, because we often get instances where we say, well, what will I make? Okay, inspiration struck, and it's not inspiration. You go to make a crop circle, and then you find out that somebody's made an identical pattern 5 miles away. It's things where we think it's free will, but we also wonder when we go deep into it, well, why did I think of that? And why is the same pattern somewhere else 2 days later?
Well, that threw a monkey wrench into things, I'll bet. The first time that this happened, where there's already the same pattern, you all must have been going, okay, what the actual hell is going on here?
Well, we had a situation that I was involved in when we were going to make. It was my first foray, really, as part of a real team. It was the second time I'd been out. It was after that magnesium flare, and the team leader said, "Okay, we're doing swallows tonight." And he sort of spent most of the day mentoring me, because I was the weakest link, because it was my first proper outing, and he showed me how to do it. And because when you go out, you don't sort of become a team leader until you've been out a few times, and you just, for the first few times, you're just a foot soldier. You're just stomping and shade and flatting in the shading bits. So the guy was showing me what to do. He said, this is because obviously I was his weakest link. And we got to the field, and he just sat bolt upright in the car and said, "We're doing spirals." I said, "I don't know what to do." He says, "We're doing spirals." And it was like this decision, he just come from nowhere. And so we made this double spiral formation. We went to the internet cafe the next day, because this was before the times of Wi-Fi. This was like in the 90s, 2000s. And we found our formation had been reported, but it was in different colour wheat. And we said, well, we were working in golden wheat. This is brown. This is green. What have they done with the camera filters? And then we saw that somebody had made an identical formation to ours on the same night, within the same hours, about 10 miles up the road. But it was in an alignment. If you took a straight line from our circle to their circle, and then through to Avebury or Stonehenge, it was a straight line.
That's incredible. And beyond that, he had changed his mind from the original pattern that you guys were going to do.
With no rationale. And I spoke to him, because we still stayed in touch for a long time. And he said, this stuff becomes de rigueur. You just expect, if you get to the point of acceptance rather than denial, you're entering into a theatre of the strange anyway. We didn't get strange things every time we made a circle, but it was quite a few. And he said, without being blasé about it, once you accept this and strange things do happen, then, you won't be so shocked when they do.
Have any of you that have made the crop circles, or have you taken any reports of people that started to have this pull to go do this, they see the lights, they have these strange things happen in the fields, that then never before had this happened, but they then went home and had paranormal activity at home?
I've had it, but it's not. It's normally comes in the way of synchronicities and dreams and coincidences that are so blatant and so piled up upon each other that they simply cannot be chance. You meet you, it's like a jigsaw pattern where it all comes together afterwards. Certain strange things will happen, but it's also happened before as well. In that this happened to me personally, in that I was having these recurring dreams of going to a part of Wiltshire which I'd never seen before. Okay, and there was these two gigantic crop circles, one in each field, and I was having this recurring dream. It happened again and again and again. And in this dream, somebody that I went to school with was flying with me. And like I hadn't seen this guy since school, and I thought, why the hell are you in my dream? And then one day, on the way, just randomly driving around Wiltshire just to meet friends, I took a wrong turn. Now, wrong turn when you talk in terms of the phenomenon is sometimes anything but, it's guided, we think. I took this wrong turn, found myself precisely in this area of Wiltshire that this landscape that I'd seen in my dreams. And then I took a double take because the name of the lane that took me to that wrong turn was the name of the road that my school friend lived in when we were kids. And I thought, well, that's just a head screw straight away. And anyway, it had a profound effect on me. And I thought, well, this is where we've got to do the circle. There's two fields. That's, one circle in each field. I haven't got time to do both. And I was saying to my friends and to the crew and to my partner, I've got two designs here. I've got a choice of which one to do. Which should we do? And in the end, I was like Luke Skywalker in Star Wars. I just let the Force decide. I couldn't decide which to do. And I got a team and we went into this first field. And I thought, right, I'm just going to open myself up now and say whichever one comes out first, that's what I'm going to do. So we got this design down. And then the next day, I got a phone call from my partner and she said, God, you were busy last night. I said, well, we got the circle down. We got one of them down. And she said, no, you didn't. And I said, well, we did. She goes, you got both of them down. And I said, no, we didn't. We got one down. And she said, there's pictures on the internet. And if you look on the aerial photographs, both of your designs are in adjacent fields next to each other. Now, there was a slight hill strip separating the two fields, which meant that another team couldn't see us and we couldn't see them. So both of my designs ended up in the field when we didn't know about them and they didn't know about us.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. But this is common, Shannon. These reports are common, and it's all to do with synchronicities and dreams. And then that's when we think, again, I'm getting back to the other thing. Is it a telepathy between us, or is it something else at play, which is actually, guiding us? I'm very reluctant to say that we're channeled, or because it makes you seem as if you're anointed in some way. We're not special people, okay? We're just people that are very attracted to the landscape and attracted to ufology and the paranormal. But we do seem to think that if you are sympathetic to the phenomenon, it becomes aligned with you, if you see what I mean. In the same way as, UFO enthusiasts are more likely to see UFOs a lot of the time, aren't they? It just seems to be that if we do take an interest, then it takes an interest back.
I've asked this before for other subjects, but I think it would work here to ask you this. Have you ever, or even taken a report of this, like somebody has heard of these strange happenings around people that are making crop circles, and then they go out and they're just all like, oh, well, I'll go out and hang out, but what a bunch of bullshit. There's no lights going on out here. There would never be anything paranormal tied to this. You guys are just stomping on, boards and blah, blah, blah. Do you think that because we're talking about intention and possible telepathy and subconscious connections and consciousness and things like that, do you think that taking someone out like that is, a complete, not skeptic, but a skeptic, and who knows why anyone would want to take someone that negative out, but maybe Shannon, they did. Shannon, would that change things?
It's happened.
Really?
It's happened. what happened one what happened once a few years ago was that we had two people exactly as you're describing. Okay, they were just there for the spooky stuff, and they didn't take it terribly seriously. I wasn't that happy with them being out with us because I thought these could be journalists for all I know. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we didn't really know them that well. And we went, it was a big old team that was as well. I think there was about 12 people in that team. I seem to remember we messed up the circle, so we had to turn it into something else. See, that's the thing, you see, because the audience only sees it after the event. What we made is sometimes not what we intended to make because we've made a mistake and we have to replicate the mistake and we have to. But so we got this circle started. We had to change it immediately because the team leader said we've messed it up. At the end of the day, what you may think is quite glamorous, oh, we're going to see a crop circle, mate. It's actually quite boring after 3 hours. You're just watching 10 to 12 people or 5 people just milling around because the first hour could be just measuring the thing out and then the rest is stomping and doing the shading and pattern. They were bored. And one of them said, oh, this is really boring. Where's the spooky stuff? And the second that she said that, this corkscrew thing, like this luminous pink corkscrew tinged with turquoise. It was about the size of a juggernaut, the size of a couple of double-decker buses. It just appeared behind her, only about 100 foot up above this hill, and it just spiraled down like a corkscrew, and went behind the ridge, and the whole thing was over in a space of 2 or 3 seconds. And this collective whoa went up from the team because we'd all seen it, and she goes, well, yeah, well, what's that, and the team leader said, well, you know, you've got to respect it to see it, and it's not going to do party tricks for you, so that's the reason why you're the only person that didn't see that. So that is a first-hand account of that. Now, I've been knocked for saying that, for saying, well, the phenomenon, you know, it's reading your mind. But I don't know. We are dealing with something that is dealing on the mental level that could be far in advance of what our paradigms understand. So that was an example where, yeah, somebody went in there with the wrong intent, and they kind of paid the price for it because they were the only person that didn't see the phenomenon.
Without an aerial, this is very crop circle 101. I'm sure people are going, oh, come on, Shannon, you should know this. But without an aerial view, how does one know that you've messed up your design?
Okay, that's because I think he'd actually started to shade in a part that shouldn't have been shaded, and then it's really hard to pull the crop back up once it's wrong.
I'll bet.
Yeah, but as people say, you know, you can't make these things unless you're seeing it from the air. It's rubbish. It's you know, when you're a kid and you got the square and the compasses and the pencil, it's just that scaled up, you know. So if you go out and you want to make 100-foot circle, you just take a straight line out. You have one person in the center, normally standing on the tram line, which is where the vehicles are used, so there's not, so the crop isn't messed up. You just send one person out with a straight line, you know, measuring 50 foot, and they just crab step sideways all the way round, and then you've got your 100-foot circle. You don't need to be able to see it aerially to know that that's what you've done. And we used markers and a professional team, which is a misnomer because nobody's getting paid, an experienced team, you know, can knock out a decent circle in a couple of hours. And you scale it up because people say this cliche of, oh, it's a couple of drunk blokes, you know, coming home from the pub. It's not. We're focused, and we're very, you know, we're very focused on what we're doing. And generally, the more people that you've got, either the shorter the time it will take to make the circle, or the bigger circle you can make. I know of people that can make, you know, you can make a decent sized circle with just 2 people, as long as you're prepared to invest 3 or 4 hours in it. But if you had 5 or 6 people, you'll do it in an hour and a half. You know, it's just a question of scale.
D, if you mess up a circle or a pattern, whatever it is, and you don't correct it and finish it to where it's as it's supposed to be, I guess is the best way to describe it. Did the lights not show up? If you mess it up and you just go, let's just leave it alone, do you not see any lights that night?
first thing to say to that is that you don't see lights every time, okay? But again, without this is where it gets really, really strange. Sometimes you make a mistake on a circle and it's a blatant mistake. You have to change the design, and then you find out afterwards that the design that you ended up with is of a tremendous significance to the area that you've placed it in, and you didn't know. So that's when you think, is it like being at school and the bully next to you is jogging your pen? Were we supposed to make that mistake? And that's where your head starts to boil, because you go, anything that happens in that field could be interpreted as something else getting involved. you know I know of crop circles that have been made that are of relevance to one person, that is, and so a mistake's made, and then somebody was going on and was, oh my god, that is the monogram that my grandmother used to have on my handkerchief, and I was in that area that day.
Oh,
It's really strange. Some crop circles have significance to like loads and loads of people, but some just have significance to one. I know of one guy who was a tourist. He's a journalist. He's a nice guy that I used to hang about with, and he said, right, he was renting a cottage in the crop circle country, and his wife said to him, what would be the most perfect present we could have before we go? And he said, a crop circle in the back garden, please. And of course, he wakes up the next morning and there's a crop circle in the back garden. And then I found out with that particular circle that the crop circle making team intended to go somewhere completely different that evening. And then on the way, there was a problem with the drive, or that they couldn't get to this particular place. And the team leader said, oh, let's go and do that here instead. And then it's of a particular relevance to the person that finds it. And that's when you think, at what point was that supposed to happen? It really does start to make you really think when it's a massive rabbit hole, Sharon. So are mistakes? Was it supposed to be that way? It just goes deeper and deeper, exactly like ufology.
now I know in this particular instance that I'm going to bring up, or hypothetical rather, that it wouldn't last as long. And I don't even know if this is a valid question or not, but would you think that if you guys went out to a plowed dead field that was dust and dirt, could you make the same patterns? And would it mean the same? Would the same powerful things possibly happen?
What if there was no crop in the field?
Uh-huh.
Well, you could obviously still plot it out, but it wouldn't stay there because it's just soil.
Yeah. Yeah.
It has to be something which will stay there. I mean, there's different types of crops. So you've got wheat, barley. Generally, you've got the canola, which is like the oil seed stuff. But with you get certain types of wheat where it's more pliable and it stays down. But you got other types of crop where it just springs up. It's a bit messy, and sometimes the pattern just doesn't stay too defined for a very long time. But certainly what you're talking about there is equivalent of people doing, I suppose, chalk horses,
Mm-hmm.
Are you actually suggesting that people can just go in and, because they've made a pattern and because they've made a symbol, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I just wonder if there's any significance to the they or the them. And that, I mean, obviously they would want it to last. I completely understand that. I'm just wondering about, is there something having to do with these fields themselves? And obviously there is, because certain groups are pulled to certain places, and because of certain people or the area, like you said, historically.
I think because I think 90% of crop circles are made within a certain radius in Wiltshire, and because we tend to pick sites which you've got Neolithic, they've got historic significance, as I said, around the Long Barrows and the Henges, and around Avebury and Stonehenge. We just think that we have somehow inherited the tradition of our forebears that were making those stone circles in the first place, but obviously without the heavy lifting. And obviously our circles are transitory because they're only going to last, a few weeks at best.
Right.
See, that's the other thing is people, if you're going to go into a crop circle and look at it properly, you need to be, it's like a crime scene, Shannon. It's exactly like a crime. It gets contaminated within hours. Okay. So many is the time I've seen people go into a crop circle and say, well, this one's man-made because you can see footprints all over it. Well, that's the visitors that are in there before you. You can only really evaluate a crop circle if you are in there right after it's been made or as soon as possible before there's been too many visitors in it. And this is where we get into the debate between man-made and non-man-made. Our contention is that those single circles from the 80s, that resemble the tally nests, we think that a lot of those were are still unknown to this day how they got there. Okay, but certainly anything with a pattern or with a geometric pattern, you can really put that down to that being people. Okay, but people say, well, it can't be man-made because people get, they get headaches in them, or they get a good experience or a bad experience, or there's radiation or whatever, and we say, well, that's happening in man-made circles. And there's this myth about that the crop has been bent and not broken. It's all mythology, which is based on people having scientific tests that haven't been peer reviewed. The thing is, with believers, the belief is so, they want to believe so much that it's not humans, that they will just, if you say it's humans, they'll just say, well, oh, you're working for MI5, you're CIA, whatever. What we're trying to say is that once you put humans into the equation as like an essential part of the creation of the crop circle, the mystery is then blown up to 100 times the size of what you originally thought it was, because that's when you get the synchronicities, the dreams, the lights, all this strange stuff we have. It's just as strange with people in the equation as when you remove them. So we think the mystery is not, the mystery is really not how they got there. It's what is making this stuff happening around them before and after and during the time they're being made.
Have you all discussed a theory on why they would want or need people to create these?
No, we get instances where we come to a conclusion that something's happened and we'll go, well, all of those jigsaw pieces have come together to make that happen, but why? Yeah, I mean, there's a case I had, which is crazy. It's a crazy thing where we didn't know what to make, and so I just sat in the van and I drew out this design, and I thought, well, that isn't anything. So if we get it wrong, there's nothing to compare it to. It's not like I was doing a Masonic symbol or an all-seeing eye. I just did this design, right? And I thought, well, if we get it wrong, it's okay. And it was just this silly little thing. And we put it in the field. It looked really good. And then the next day, we went to breakfast, at a cafe, which is really near the circle. And there was a guy there, and his shirt, his pattern was exactly what I'd written down, And then you think, why? What does it all mean? We don't understand, So why did I sit in the van and draw that design, and what placed that guy right next to me at breakfast the next day? That's the bit where we go, okay, well, yeah, that happened, but why? We don't understand.
I mean, to run into a guy with a shirt on with that same random pattern it must just be such a shock almost, or maybe you just want to laugh about it after a while because you're like, again with this.
Yeah, it is again with this. It's again with us all the time, and there was a guy that I knew that made a crop circle, and he was going out with this girl, and he wanted to make a crop circle which was really personal to both of them, and he was a musician, so he wrote the musical notes down to Michelle by the Beatles. Okay, so he actually put the musical notes down in a field, but he got one of them wrong. And then a seismographer or a seismologist, this guy he traced out the dots in this circle, and he overlaid them over a map, and all of them corresponded with unusual tectonic activity. You know, there've been earthquakes around where he placed the maps in relation to the, you know, to the circle, then on top of a world map. But had my mate not got that note wrong, they wouldn't have lined up. So I said to him, Kay, you know that crop circle you made actually lines up with all these, you know, earthquakes, and even with the wrong one. And he said, well, the strangest thing was my girlfriend, her ringtone was Happy Talk from South Pacific, and I couldn't decide whether to do the Beatles song, which was her name, Michelle, or whether to do South Pacific. And as I was in the grass drawing out the pattern or trying to decide which to do, a beetle walked across my pad, you know. And I said, yeah, but what does it all mean? He said, I don't know.
Well, going back to what you said in the beginning about how you love, you know, who doesn't love Close Encounters of the Third Kind, but he's doing the potatoes, and it's like, you know, this means something, but what does it mean, you know?
Yeah, we don't know. And unfortunately, because we are trying to solve the mystery, the crop circle mystery and the UFO mystery based on what our current paradigms are, that's why. I mean, I don't know if you remember, I think Jan and Hynek or Jacques Vallée said, even if we had the answer, we're too primitive to understand it. Do you understand?
That could very well be. Absolutely. I mean, okay, so again with the theories, because I know, of course, you guys talk about this stuff. So is the theory that it is something ancient of the land, like an elemental situation, fae, alien?
I think so. I think so. I think so. But it's alien only in that it's alien to our own understanding now. But I speak to crop circle makers that have made formations outside of that creative hub in Wiltshire, and I don't get any strange reports. And I speak to crop circle makers from Italy and from overseas, and they've got diddly shit, Shannon. They've got no reports at all.
Okay, that's interesting. That was going to be one of my questions, is what about other reports from other areas? So it's just that area.
From the experiences that I've had, and speaking to people that work overseas, that come over here sometimes and do circles over here, it seems to be just connected to this area.
So then,
and which does, as I said to you before, whether the crop circles are here or not, people have been reporting UFOs and lights over this area since God knows when. And also, and I'm not sure if this is a coincidence, although if you're a conspiracy theorist, maybe you've got your own views, it does seem to be that there's a proliferation of military bases around all of these areas, you know. And I've seen like military aircraft, you know, flying really close to circles when I've been in them. After I've gone in, after we made it, going in the next day, they definitely show an interest, but we're not sure if they're just there to spook us, you know. But it's been said before, it does seem to be that in these Neolithic sites and in these ancient sites where, you know, our forebears have created these stone tumuli and stone circles, there's always military there. There's always military bases there, and there's normally no fly zones there, you know.
What about any negative or frightening experiences? You've heard lights and no problem, it's all cool and cool synchronicities. What about negative stuff?
Luckily, I've only had one bad experience where I made a crop circle for the wrong reason, okay, because I did it to show off, and that's a no-no. That you do not let ego get involved in this. I did it to try and impress somebody, because he wanted to see a crop circle being made. There was only two of us.
And what happened?
And
why was it
what happened was, as I said, I went there with the wrong intention. I think it was my fifth outing of the season. So, you know, this guy wanted to come out, and I said, "Oh, we can make one now if you like." And it was really me being big-headed, really. And anyway, we got this circle done, and it was nice. He was really good. He was a really good teammate. He learnt really quickly, and we got this thing done. And at the end, he said, "Oh, do you mind if I put a finishing touch to this?" And I said, "No, okay." And he included a feature in it which completely changed the aesthetic, so it looked sinister. I'm not going to go into any more detail, but it completely changed the circle. And then when it went online, the online commentators were going, "This looks really quite, sinister." And I came home and had this terrible bad luck for a few days. Terrible, really, really odd things happening to me. Really bad luck. And my partner at the time, I had to take her to an errand. I think she was going to work. It was only a mile trip to work, but I was getting like cars swerving in front of me, and I was getting, you know, avoiding bottles and then going into nearly crashing into buses and people running in front of me and all this really strange thing. And I said to my partner, "This is like being in an arcade game. It's like I'm destined to crash somewhere." All right. And I let her out the car, and then sure enough, I just pulled off 5 yards and this cyclist crashed into my windscreen. And long story short, I thought, I can't leave the car here because it's got a smashed windscreen. It'll look abandoned. The insurance company couldn't get there for like a day. But by chance, there was this guy in his front garden saying, "I'm a windscreen repairman. I'll do it for you for 100." I said, "Just do it." Okay. But he wasn't very good at his job. And I don't know how, if you've got the same system over there, but with the windscreens here, you have to put these rubber suckers on to get it into the window. But he wasn't very good at his job, so he kept on putting the rubber stickers, and the rubber sucker was all wrong. It was all the wrong way, and he made a right mess of it. But he finally got it fixed, and I drove off and I looked at the windscreen and I thought, no. This, because sometimes you've got to go, "No, I'm imagining things. That's not what I think it is." Okay. And my partner got in the car when I picked her up from work, and I said, "Oh, the windscreen's smashed. I've had to get a new windscreen." She goes, "Why the hell is your crop circle all over that windscreen?" Okay, because where he'd done the sucker marks, it became that crop circle that I'd made.
Oh my goodness.
And like, it was there for weeks. I couldn't wash it off. And it was like a reminder for me, like a test to me, a reminder of what happens when you do this for the wrong reasons. Because I know people that have gone out with their maybe not the best motivations. Because at the end of the day, if we are dealing with magic here, Shannon, okay, talking in its broadest terms, magic is black magic or white magic, depending on how you use it. Okay. So I have heard people going out and having similar experiences to mine, but they've done it for the wrong reasons. Or, I mean, mine wasn't black magic, but it was the wrong reason. People that have gone out with the wrong motivations have come out with bad results. So, but sometimes you go out to make a particular circle and then it completely changes. And then you got that thing again where you go, well, the original pattern wouldn't have worked, but now this works because it's relevant to this event. It's predicted an event, or there's somebody that it's very important to. That's the bit where our heads start to scramble and we go, what does it all mean? And are mistakes supposed to be there? Is that our decision? What happened? And this is the part of the subject that I think really needs to be investigated. We need to pull away from birthed UFOs and this being messages from space brothers, and this, the second you put humans into the equation and you realize that we're not bad people, we're just like the Close Encounters, like you say, with Devil's Tower with Roy Neary. We're doing it, we don't necessarily know why we're doing it, but they have positive effects on people that visit them afterwards a lot of the time, and it seems to be part of something bigger that we don't understand.
Well, that's for sure. I mean, what a fascinating topic and conversation. I'm so glad that you reached out to me because, like I said, I initially thought it was one thing. It's completely different, and I absolutely love that. I mean, what a huge mystery, though, but it's definitely tied into us, which is amazing. So, okay, Dee, so let people know as much as you want, of course, if you want them to contact you, or head to the Facebook page. I don't know how much you want to give out, but if you do, go right ahead.
Yeah, I've got this substack called It Can't Be People, and the reason why I called it Can't Be People was because when I visited my first crop circle, and I was at that point I was absolutely 100% against it being humans. I thought it was either, I didn't know what it was. Okay, but you see, you had these stories of these things, but the stories are, oh, these things are formed in seconds, which is obviously they're not, because you'd have seen it done. So there's all this mythology, and I was in this crop circle believing that it couldn't be humans, and I just looked around at the razor sharp lines and looked at how it was made, and I just went, this can't be people. And as it turned out, I was 100% right and 100% wrong, because even though it is people, we think that there's something else. Okay, so that's why I called it. The Substack is called It Can't Be People. The Facebook is called It Can't Be People. But what I'm trying to say in doing this is that there's no ego involved here, Shannon. It's not people saying, look what we've done. People say, well, if you're so clever, why don't you put your hands up to the art? We go, because it's not us speaking, it's the art speaking. And the second that we actually claim authorship and say we did that one, all the magic is sucked out of that circle. It's lost its magic, and it's like deactivated, if you see. So for as long as a circle, like I said before, we go in, we make, and the second we leave it, it's not ours anymore. So what we're trying to say is that if you're brave enough to put humans into the equation, the mystery is amplified to 100 times bigger than it is. It's almost as if a landed UFO is actually a mundane explanation when you put it against what we're seeing, what we're experiencing, and we're going, why? Why is this happening? Because we don't understand it. We're not chosen ones. We're not anointed. We're just aligned with the phenomenon, and we feel as if a circus maker said to me once, which I loved. He says, "It's a game of chess, but we're not playing it. We're the pieces." And the second that you actually put humans into the equation and say, let's look at a bigger mystery, that's where I think the real research should be into this subject.
Well, yeah, and it makes you wonder if it's some kind of a cipher, or if you overlaid the patterns in a certain way. If I mean, who knows what it means, or what they're trying to tell us, or convey to who. I don't, like you said, we don't know, but it's fascinating.
Well, I'm really into. I was deep into ufology. I was deep into it in the 80s and 90s, and I'm not sure where you guys stand on it. But after researching it for 30 or 40 years, I moved away from the ET hypothesis. I've moved away from that now, and I think that this is something which is coexisting with us, and it probably has been since the start of the phenomenon. And Jacques Vallée is there as well. Jenny Randalls is there as well. We're saying, well, if you say it's not from out of space, and it's from inner space, and it's existing interdimensionally, it could be the same force which is involved in the crop circles, in coercing us in the crop circles. Who's to say it's not the same thing? You understand?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I'm more of a mind to think like that than, as you say, the quote unquote space brothers coming down and perfectly lining their craft so it just crushes these crops, and that's all that's going on here. So that I lean more towards your side of things. But Dee, I know that you will continue to obviously collate these reports, and the more and more you get, I want, if you would like, for you to come back on for an update show at some point, whenever that might be. I don't know, but as more and more of this goes on, just I would love to have you back on.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm not sure how long it will take, because I'm currently. This is another thing another head scramble. In the process of writing this thing into a book, which may, it could take years. I'm just enjoying it, right? I'm having experiences which mirror the experiences that I had when I used to be a crop circle maker. People would say, I'm meeting random people in the street, okay, and they've got a story, and I think, why is this? It's as if through writing this, I'm attracting the same phenomena that I was attracting when I was actually in the fields. It seems to be outrageous coincidences and synchronicities which are occurring while I'm doing this. And another strange thing is I've spoken to a couple of other circle makers, and they're going, do you know what? I actually was going to do that. I had this feeling to do that book. But you're doing it now, so I'll give you my stories. So, and then I sit down and think, hold on, where did I get this idea from? And then the rabbit hole gets deeper and deeper. You understand?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, absolutely. That is so cool. That is cool.
Yeah.
I mean, and part of you does go, I mean, I know you kept saying, and I appreciate it, but you know, you're like, oh, we're not special. We're not special. Well, I don't know, Dee. It sounds like, you know, it was kind of meant to be in a way. I mean, I know you don't want to put ego into it, but, you know, there might be something about you and the people that you're working with that you are meant to do this for some reason.
Well, I think that a lot of people have latent psychic abilities that do this. Okay, it does seem to attract certain. Again, it's the rabbit hole again. I go, why was I interested? Why as a child was I interested in this? You know, but I don't think we're special. I just think because we're interested in it, that's what makes it happen. You know.
Yeah, definitely very well could be. Well, Dee, thank you so very much for getting in
That's a
contact
pleasure.
with me about this fascinating subject. And yeah, absolutely. I don't know when the next time will be that you feel like, okay, I have enough to come back on and chat again, but you're always welcome. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Shannon. Thank you so much. Goodbye.